Hello everyone. I'm glad to see you on my channel. The story I'm going to tell you today is pure. It is true that all the bad things that happen in life happen for a reason. It is said that we can appreciate the good things, the things when they happen to us. I hope you enjoy this story. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience.
The guests were eating, drinking, having fun. Angelica was happy the party was a success, her birthday and her wedding anniversary. But Archie was nowhere to be found. Maybe he got sick. I don't know. He also went wild today. He drank a lot, ate a lot of appetizers, danced, keeping up with the young people. Walking around the apartment, Angelica found a light in the bathroom. She was about to open the door, but then she heard Archie's excited voice. "Kitten, how can you imagine it? I can't just drop everything and go to your place right now. That would be weird, to say the least, if this was just a social call. It's my wife's birthday and my own wedding anniversary. Wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm all yours." Archie was silent, apparently listening to the answer of his telephone interlocutor. Then he spoke again in a calmer voice. "Of course, Kitty. Anything you want, and your present will be much better than my wife's. And all night I'll be only with you. At your complete disposal, my naughty girl." Angelique knew she had to leave before her husband noticed her, or throw a tantrum, or make a huge scandal and then leave. "No, you can't do that. There are people in the house having fun, her family and friends. She won't spoil their party." As she pondered her next move, Archie came out of the bathtub. He realized from the look on her face that she had heard him. "How long have you been standing there?" he asked calmly. "Enough," Angelica replied in the same tone of voice and went off to join her guests. Her husband followed her. Pretending that nothing had happened, Angelica continued to have fun with the guests. The door closed behind the last guest and Angelica was finally able to remove the happy smile from her face. She changed her clothes, then began to clear the table. Archie silently helped her, as he always did, as he had done throughout their 20 years together. When the table was cleared and Angelica began to wash the dishes, Archie brought a bottle of cognac and a glass into the kitchen. "Have you made up your mind?" He broke the silence. "Yes," answered his wife, one word. Archie poured himself into the glass, briefly looked into it, as if trying to see something there, and drank in a gulp. "I understand that you are offended, upset. It's a blow for you. But understand me too. We've been together for 20 years. I still love and respect you, but the former passion that we had in the first years of married life is no longer. We've gotten used to each other. That's why I'm asking you to think it over. So what if I had a little affair? That's normal for a man my age. I'm not going to leave you for that. We're still a family and we'll be together to the end." Archie took another drink. Angelica finished washing the dishes. She wiped her hands and turned to her husband. "Well, now listen to me. I'm not offended and not upset. I'm just surprised by your insolence and cowardice. If you, as you say, loved me and respected me, you would first, before going to the left, would talk to me. No, not ask permission, just talk to me. Explain. We've been together for 20 years and we're used to each other, like you said. So why not discuss your age-related thoughts of adultery? But you preferred to have an affair behind my back, justifying yourself by saying that I'm not desirable enough for you because I'm not young, and that all men your age do that. And women, smiling, tolerate it, because they are afraid of losing such a walking gold. They want to keep the family together. Well, there you go. You're way out of line believing that. Women my age have enough self-respect not to live with a dog just to keep the family together. So I have two options for you. Either you move in with your kitten, or we sell the apartment and distribute the money according to the shares." "Angelica, don't talk nonsense. I'm not going anywhere. And we're not going to sell anything. You'll calm down, you'll come to your senses, and everything will be fine." Archie stood up and tried to hug his wife, but she pushed him away and went into her room. "If tomorrow you don't tell me which of the two options you choose, I'll sell the apartment." Angelica closed herself in the bedroom, and Archie had no choice but to lie down in the other room. He slept alone for the first time in 20 years. Not having a woman's body around made him uncomfortable. Archie remembered how he and Angelica, barely married, had rented a small room in a communal apartment with only an old, creaky sofa, an antique closet, and a stumpy chair. But they were happy. Happy that at last they could sleep together without fear of strict parents, that all nights now belonged to them and their love. Then the communal apartment was replaced by a 2-room apartment, and a few years later they bought this one. A large 5-room apartment with a huge loggia caused the envy of friends and admiration of relatives. Angelica ran around the rooms like a child, spreading her arms wide and rejoicing loudly. Archie was also madly happy, but restrained himself from such manifestations of feelings. After all, a man, a doer. His wife enthusiastically began to organize the family nest. Over time, there was new furniture, beautiful knickknacks in general, all that indicates the presence of a woman in the house. And now that family nest was in jeopardy. Archie didn't want to sell it. It was the epitome of their family life, happy and loving. It's where their children grew up. It's where they came for vacations and vacations. Why is Angelique so stubborn? If she had not overheard his conversation with Catherine, she would not have known about his affairs, as she did not know before. It all started a couple of years ago when Archie got a new secretary. At first, he paid no attention to her, but Victoria, that was her name, was persistent in seducing the chief, and within a couple of weeks, they were in bed together. It was the first time Archie had sex with someone other than his wife in years, and he loved it. There was excitement, a desire to try new things, and he plunged into this excitement with his head. Over time, Victoria bored him, wanted fresh meat, and Archie switched to the new girl manager in his firm. Then girls began to change with such speed that Archie stopped remembering their names, but always left behind a good opinion in the form of expensive and generous gifts. The last one, Katerina, had taken a fancy to him. He had been seeing her for more than 3 months and had not thought about breaking up. Angelique was not sleeping either. Her husband's betrayal had hurt her deeply, even more than she'd realized. She had suspected that he might be sneaking around, but she shrugged it off. She hoped that it would go no further than flirting with young female employees or acquaintances. And now this overheard telephone conversation shattered all her hopes for her husband's fidelity. As affairs had gone very far, she remembered how they had met and tears came to her eyes. Angelica had been 15 when she met Archie. He had just returned from the army and was celebrating his discharge with friends in a cafe in the city. Angelica and her girlfriends had come there to celebrate the birthday of one of them. Gradually, the group of guys and girls began to look at each other and wink, and after a while, the two merry companions united. Archie had been looking at Angelica with a cheerful smile all evening, and then he asked her to a slow dance. Angelica, embarrassed, agreed, with excitement. She couldn't utter a word. Archie, sensing her shyness, smiled cheerfully. When it was time to go home, the young man volunteered to walk her home. At the entrance, Archie leaned over to kiss the girl, but suddenly changed his mind and asked, "How old are you then, princess?" 15, Angelica whispered and blushed. Archie grinned and patted her shoulder lightly. "And yeah, I don't mess with underage girls, Angelica. Not even the cute ones." And with a cheerful bye, he left. Angelica rushed into the entrance. She was ashamed and offended. Ashamed that she liked this guy and showed it to him. Shamed that he had ignored her obvious liking. From then on, whenever she met Archie, she would hold her head high and pretend not to notice him. Archie grinned and invariably shouted, "Hey, little princess, hi." The first time Angelica saw him with a girl, she cried all night and avoided seeing him. To somehow drown out her grief, the girl is closely engaged in studies, thanks to which, after graduating from school, easily entered the university on the budget department. New atmosphere, new friends, new student life allowed her to forget about her first love for a while. The freshman day was approaching. Angelica and her friends were preparing for it by raiding clothing stores. The first person she saw, entering the large hall of the main building of the university, was Archie. He noticed her at once too and winked cheerfully. Angelica did her best to hide from him in the crowd. What is he doing here? She thought excitedly. Probably accompanying another of his passions. A little thinking, and from this even more annoyed, decided the girl. While the solemn part was going on, Angelica still thought about the guy and looked for him with her eyes, scolding herself for it. But when the disco started, the thoughts about Archie went out of her head. Angelica completely gave herself to the fun. "Shall we dance?" She heard a voice behind her and her heart jumped. Trying to keep her composure, Angelica turned to the young man. "Have you reconsidered your views on socializing with underage girls?" Archie grinned and, taking Angelica by the waist, drew her into the crowd of dancers. "It's been 2.5 years. I think you've grown to socialize with me." The guy's eyes sparkled merrily. "Oh, you?" The girl was speechless at such insolence. Archie laughed. "Come on, don't be mad. It's just that you were a 15-year-old teenager then, and I'm already an adult, a 20-year-old guy after demobilization. Whatever. Now you've grown into a beautiful girl to look after." Angelica lowered her eyes so as not to betray her glee. "How did you come here?" She turned the conversation to another topic to recover from his words. "I study here. I entered right after the army. I'm a physics major. And you?" "I'm this year. I'm a physics major too." That evening, walking Angelica to the entrance, Archie kissed her without a second thought. Old feelings broke through the wall, behind which they were hard to hide, and rushed out, picking up the girl with his wags and taking her with him to the land of love. They were married on Angelica's birthday. She was 19. "What a wonderful gift you gave me for my birthday," said Angelica on the first wedding night. "Well, this gift I can make you several times a day," laughed Archie. "Oh, come on." Angelica jokingly wagged her finger at her new husband. "I mean that you may be your wife, thus confirming that you need me." "Of course I do. I've needed you from the moment I saw you. And I promise that I will always love you and take care of you. We're together for life now. I won't give you away." "And I." Archie didn't go to Cadilla's. He rented an apartment near his ex-girlfriend's. The kids were coming on Friday. How would they react to being separated from Angelica? They wanted to celebrate Angelica's birthday and wedding anniversary once again, but in a quiet family circle. The daughter studied in the second year of one of the capital's universities. The son, however, left school right after 9th grade and went to college, also in the capital. The parents rented them an apartment and were sure that all was well with them. The daughter would see to it that her brother was fed and washed, and the son would meet his sister from university if her classes finished late. Thursday evening, Archie dialed Angelica's number. She didn't pick up for a long time. Finally, her voice came through and Archie suddenly felt his loneliness without his wife. He missed her terribly. All week he pretended that the situation did not hurt him much, that he would wait until Angelica thought it over and forgave him. Thousands of families live like this, when the husband finds an outlet on the side and the wife just accepts it, so as not to destroy the established years of family life. The husband remains a model family man, taking care of his wife and children, bringing home a paycheck and taking them once a year to the resort. "I'm listening." Angelica's voice was calm, which can't be said for the music playing in the background. "Aye. Can you turn the music down? We need to talk about tomorrow night." Archie started the conversation. "Hi. No, I can't turn the music down. I'm in a restaurant. I don't have time or inclination to discuss anything right now. If it's really urgent, we'll do it tomorrow morning." Before Archie could answer, she disconnected. Archie stared at the receiver, perplexed. What restaurant? What was she doing there? Angelica visited restaurants only with him. He dialed her number again. "Angelica, what are you doing in a restaurant?" Archie didn't hide his indignation. "Relaxing," calmly answered his wife. "What do you mean, relaxing?" Archie began to get agitated. What should be the meaning of rest? Angelica was surprised. "I was invited, I agreed. I'm a free woman, I have the right." She switched off again. "Who invited you?" Archie growled, but the phone was beeping. He dialed her number again. "The subscriber does not answer or is temporarily unavailable." An impassive metallic voice answered him. Archie clenched his fists helplessly, then picked up the phone again and dialed the number. "Kodak, I'm offended with you. You promised to come to me on Sunday. I'm coming now. Back!" Sharply shouted Archie and hung up. Surprised, Catherine looked at the phone, but looked not long rushed to get dressed. "Archie, what are you doing? We have already traveled to 6 restaurants, and you still cannot choose." Weeping voice wailed Katia. "Let's stop already. I'm hungry." "Now, we'll find a decent one. These are more like canteens." Archie thought frantically about where his wife could go. Having come up with nothing, he decided on the 7th restaurant. Catherine was chattering away, but Archie didn't listen to her. He couldn't believe that Angelica, his Angelica, had gone somewhere without him. "How quickly you forgot about me. So you didn't really need me before. And you've been acting offended." Archie thought angrily. "Kodak, what's the matter with you? You're some kind of inattentive." Pouted Ekaterina. "I left my wife. replied Archie and immediately regretted it as Catherine's eyes sparkled with joy. Yes, now I understand why you chose a restaurant for a long time. You wanted to celebrate it at the highest level. Don't worry, all the shortcomings of the restaurant will compensate you. Catherine meaningfully stroked his arm and ran her foot under the table on his leg. You will move to me, right? You live too far from my work. Archie began to evade such a prospect. Let's find a place closer to your office. Catherine did not give up. Okay, I'll do it, tomorrow. And now, let's celebrate. Archie smiled wryly and raised his glass. He needed a dope not to run away from Catherine right now. Archie didn't wait until morning to get away from Catherine. Having done the whole proper mistress program, he was going home. You're leaving? Catherine was surprised, but it's too early. Sorry, I have an important meeting today. I need to look fresh and awake, and you squeeze me like a lemon. Tried to flatter Catherine's ego man. So I'm expecting you tonight. The girl didn't stop. No, today the children are coming. You need to meet with them, talk to them. Otherwise their mother will tell them about me unbelievable things. Let's at the weekend, I'll call you. Without waiting for Catherine to figure out what to say, Archie left her apartment. In his rented apartment, he took a shower, looked at his watch. It was only 2 in the morning. Setting his alarm clock for 8 in the morning, Archie went to bed. He didn't have a meeting scheduled for today, of course. He didn't need to rush to work to prepare for it. Who had Angelica gone to the restaurant with? And had her vacation been limited to only going to the restaurant? The questions about his wife's pastime arose again and again in Archie's mind and kept him awake. Angelica was suffering from a hangover for the first time in her life. She had never been so drunk before. And here, resentment at her husband, the desire to distract herself, and ideally to forget everything like a terrible dream did their job. Angelica, yes, you're smart and beautiful. Persuaded friend Lucy. Yes, we will find you such a man, you're going to rock. Yes, your dog will bite his elbows, that's such a woman for underage sikucha. Angelica nodded and drank another glass. She had missed the moment when Lucy had managed to meet 2 men who had come to the restaurant to have dinner and discuss business. And here they were, the 4 of them already partying hard. The men turned out to be polite and gallant. One of them, Billy, kept his eyes on Angelica. She was flattered. When he asked her to dance, she gladly accepted. Angelica, I'm conquered, whispered the beau in her ear. Angelica did not answer anything, just smiled enigmatically. Sorry for a modest question, but such a charming girl must have a man. You are not freed, are you? I am. Angelica answered, I'm getting a divorce. Really? Who would dare to lose such a woman? He is probably insane. Angelica did not go into details. After her words, Billy began to court her more actively. Angelica didn't remember how she got home, but she woke up alone in her bed, fully dressed, even her shoes. After getting out of bed, Angelica walked to the bathroom, stripping off her clothes as she went and leaving a trail of clothes behind her. The hot shower brought her back to her senses a little. She walked to the kitchen, picking up her clothes and putting them in their places on the way, and made herself some coffee. Taking a big sip, she called Lucy. From Lucy's voice, she could sense that she was no better off than Angelica. Irene, how did I get home? Do you remember? Angelica asked. You bet. Lucy laughed. Such a sin not to remember. You got up from the table, bowed to our gentleman and said, thank you. It was great, but I'm out of here. Billy tried to walk you out, to which you said, I'm sorry, sir, but I want to take a few years off from men and their presence in my life. So you asked the waiter to call you a cab and you left. Holy shit, that's all Angelica could say. Oh, come on. Don't worry about it. I gave Billy your number. Ivar, why? Angelica groaned. Wedge with a wedge, and the sooner the better. Lucy replied in an adamant voice. Well, come on, get well. I'm going to take some pills too. Lucy passed out, and Angelica thought. Archie had called yesterday and wanted to talk about something, and even seemed to resent her vacationing in a restaurant. The phone rang. Angelica cringed at the sound, which sounded loud and obnoxious. Archie popped up on the screen. Speak of the devil. Angelica thought indifferently. I'm listening. Angelica, today the children are coming. We need to meet to discuss. Can't we do it over the phone? No. This is not a telephone conversation. I'll be there at 2 o'clock. No need. Let's meet on neutral ground. Come on, Angelica. What are you, like a little girl? Either on neutral ground or let's say goodbye, Angelica said firmly. She was afraid that coming home, Archie would try to get close to her and she would not be able to resist him. All right, then come to our cafe, Archie grumbled angrily and turned off. Angelica spent a long time choosing what to wear. She wanted to look so that Archie would realize what kind of woman he had lost. She decided on a new dress, bought the other day. Archie had not seen it yet. It was austere and at the same time emphasized her figure. The green color of the dress emphasized her eyes of the same color. Adding gold shoes and a beige light coat, Angelica put on makeup and carelessly pinned her hair with a golden barrette. After admiring her reflection in the new lingerie, Angelica began to put on the clothes she had chosen. Archie glanced nervously at his watch. Even though it was still 5 minutes before 2 o'clock, he was getting nervous. Who had she gone to the restaurant with last night? Had she come home alone? 1,000 more questions swirled in his head, tormenting and unnerving him. At exactly 2 o'clock, the door of the cafe opened and Angelica walked in. The receptionist escorted her to Archie's table. As she walked, the man involuntarily admired his wife. She was still as slender as the day they met, just as beautiful and naive. What had he done? Archie jumped up to help his wife sit up. Something to eat? He asked as thoughtfully as he could. No, thank you. Coffee? Angelica asked the waiter. He tilted his head, signaling that he accepted and left. So what did you want to talk about? She looked at Archie. Her gaze lacked the usual warmth and affection with which she had looked at her husband before. Polite interest, nothing more. Archie was painfully cut by that look. He felt so frightened and lonely, as if he had nothing and no one left in this life. If he only knew what it cost Angelica to look at him like that. She tried her best to appear indifferent, but inside her everything was trembling, and her heart was ready to jump out and throw itself at her husband with the words, "Don't leave me, please." "I wouldn't like to let the children know we're going to be separated just yet," Archie said. "Why not?" Angelica took a sip of the coffee brought by the waiter. "Well, they shouldn't know yet. They might take it the wrong way and protest in a bad way. What kind of mood will they be in when they go back to school? Can't we wait until after the vacation? So you want our kids to think we're doing well for 3 months? Yeah, why worry them before they're ready? They won't be able to take in this information over the weekend and they'll leave worried. The school year has just started and they might just drop out despite us." "Okay," Angelica agreed after some thought. "Baby, you're right. I'll go right after work to meet them, and you, as if nothing had happened, prepare a festive dinner." Angelica nodded, remembering what she had in the refrigerator and what she needed to go to the store for. Archie, as if reading her thoughts, said, "Wine, fruit, and cake I'll take care of. How about some more ice cream?" Angelica waved her hand and got up, getting ready to leave. Archie also got up and, throwing a few bills on the table, caught up with his wife. He lightly put his arm around her waist and, leaning to her ear, whispered, "You look beautiful today." "I always look beautiful," Angelique said coldly and shrugged her shoulders, making it clear that his arm around her waist was not pleasant. No sooner had she left the cafe than her phone started ringing. The number was unfamiliar to her, but thinking it was work-related, she pressed the receiver. "Angelica, I'm glad I reached you. Do you remember me? I'm Billy. We had such a good time last night. I couldn't sleep a wink all night thinking about you." "Of course I remember you, Billy." Angelica noticed out of the corner of her eye that Archie was listening to her conversation. "That's great. How about we do it again? Just the two of us, you and me. Pick any restaurant you want. You could hear Billy's delight." "I'd love to," Angelica exclaimed as loudly and joyfully as possible. She saw Archie getting into the car with a crimson face. "Well, did you feel yourself in my skin?" Angelica thought gloatingly and said aloud, "But I'm busy for the next few days. Let's call on Tuesday." "Okay. Too bad, of course. I had hoped for a faster meeting. But for your sake, I'm willing to wait. I'll wait till Tuesday." Billy laughed. "Well, that's great." Angelica passed out. Walking through the supermarket, Angelica hummed softly. She was very pleased with Archie's reaction to Billy's call. The look in his eyes as she entered the cafe was more eloquent than any words. He looked at her as he had the day he'd seen her in her wedding dress. It was a look of love and desire. But today regret flashed in it. That's the way you should be, asshole. Angelica tried to be angry, but it was still light and joyful. In the evening, Archie brought the cheerful children. As if nothing had happened, he kissed Angelica. His kiss was longer than usual, and he would have continued kissing her if she hadn't gently pushed him away. Seriosa, the children are out of the way. Come on, wash your hands and get to the table. All through dinner, Archie joked and tried to touch Angelica every chance he got. She smiled back, but tried not to react to his touch. She was afraid of herself, that she would fall so low as to forgive him and throw herself into his arms. When they entered the bedroom, Angelica removed the smile from her face and said nonchalantly, "You sleep on the sofa." "But why?" "Because I don't want to sleep with a man who betrayed me and who didn't hesitate to get into bed with another woman. Or did you think I'd let you into my bed? Unlike you, I'm not afraid to let just anyone into my bed." "Yeah?" Archie was angry. "What about Billy? You mean you didn't sleep with him?" Angelica slapped him across the face. "Bastard, not only did you get dirty in that filth, but you want to blame me for it." The children came running to the noise. "What happened?" asked the excited daughter. "Nothing." Angelica was getting carried away. "It's just that your daddy decided that mommy is too old, unlike him. That he is a man, that he has the right to be polygamous." "Daddy, is it true?" The son squinted at his father. "You're cheating on mom." "Well, Tony, you have to understand me as a man to a man." Archie looked ingratiatingly at his son. "Why will I do that all of a sudden?" Tony clenched his fists. "You bring this filth into our house and you think it's okay? Really, you're a scumbag." The daughter stood there and didn't say anything. It was obvious that she was on her mother's side, but she felt sorry for her father too. But Tony didn't calm down. "Mom, what's wrong with you? Why did you kick that dog out?" "Tony, to be honest, we broke up. We just decided not to tell you guys yet. Did you think we'd be so young that it'd be a shock?" "Well, judging by your reaction, it is. I thought you were okay with it. That's why I'm furious. But now that Tony's turned on his father, you can go back to your date." "How do you talk to your father?" Archie's pissed. "Like a traitor." "Go away. You don't need to spread your filth around here." "Dad, really, you better go." Leslie, the daughter, intervened. She was afraid Tony would lash out at her father. "Okay," said Archie conciliatingly, "we better calm down, so I'll leave. But hopefully we'll get together sometime and talk." Angelica and the children waited in silence for him to leave. "Why are you like this? He's your father after all." "Mom, his affairs are making you suffer too, and we don't want you to suffer." Leslie hugged her mother. "Let's go get a drink. I saw a little champagne left." "Come on." Angelica waved her hand and furtively brushed away a tear. Archie stood outside and looked at the windows of his apartment. All his plans to spend the weekend with Angelica and persuade her not to be so hot and live together had fallen apart. Would she really be willing to ruin everything for his little weakness? Of course, accusing her of having an affair with Billy was wrong. Angelica would never look at another man, much less go to bed with him. She's too decent for that. And I'm not decent? No, I'm not. I'm a man. A man can't always be with the same woman, I guess. Or can he? What was wrong with Angelique? Everything. She was a good hostess, a good mother, a good lover. Archie thought that his Angelica would be as good a mistress to another man. He was thrown into a cold sweat. No way. She can't, has no right to. Does he himself have? Archie trudged back to his lonely apartment and thought, what did all those wenches give you? Happiness? Peace of mind? The feeling that you have people who will always support you? No. Then what was it all for? Coming back to an empty apartment and a cold bed? Or for the constant restaurant dinners or fast food? Maybe love. At the word love, Archie immediately remembered Angelica in her pink robe with a careless wisp of hair, with her soft, warm smile and loving gaze. Their passionate nights when the children left from vacation and one could no longer be shy. So still for what? To make me feel like I'm still a wow? I don't get it. What's the matter, Kitty? Catherine was standing in the driveway. Archie stopped and stared at her in surprise. In the 2 weeks since his family dinner, he hadn't thought of her once. What's the matter? He asked stupidly. Are you ignoring me, or what? You don't answer your phone. Your work won't let me in. Even your wife won't tell me where you are. Did you go to see Angelica? Archie was getting angry. Yes. What's the big deal? I thought you said you were divorcing her. That doesn't mean I'm going to be with you. Of course you won't. Yes, you will. Why should I? Because I'm pregnant. So what? What's it got to do with me that you're pregnant? It's your baby. Archie laughed. He'd never laughed as hard as he did now. Or maybe it was nerves, but Archie was getting more and more distracted. He realized that he had been greatly mistaken in thinking that he attracted women with his looks and intelligence. Catherine's pregnancy announcement had opened his eyes. Young women are attracted to his good salary and high position. Why are you laughing? Catherine asked in bewilderment. From happiness or what? Of course, I could take you to the DNA examination and then disgracefully part with you. Archie finally calmed down from laughter. But I'd be saving my time and yours. I can't have children. I had to have surgery a few years ago that resulted in infertility. So, Archie fell silent and looked expectantly at his mistress. Already an ex. Catherine's face changed several expressions in a couple of minutes, from triumphant to confused, then disappointed and angry. What a jerk! She shouted and turned on her heels and walked away. Archie entered the apartment and sat down on the sofa. What could Catherine have said to Angelica? How would his wife take it? He really wanted to call her, but he was afraid to. After some more hesitation, Archie dialed Angelica's number. I wanted to apologize for Katia. I didn't think she would go to you. Why is she looking for you? You found a new one and didn't tell her. Archie realized from Angelica's voice that she was just joking. Not sarcastic, not mocking, not teasing, and that made it hard for Archie. He didn't answer her question, but said goodbye and disconnected. Angelica on the other end of the line also hung up the phone and exhaled heavily. How hard it was for her to give this carefree voice. Every day she rehearsed it, rehearsed her facial expressions in case she met Archie. She kept hoping her feelings for Archie would cool down. She even went out with Billy a few times, but it hadn't gotten much further than talking and walking him home. Lucy's girlfriend cheered her up as best she could. Angelica cheered up, agreed with Lucy, and said it would take time to get over Archie. Only it turned out to take a lot of time. A lot of time. Early in the morning, the doorbell rang. Angelica, wondering who it could be so early in the morning, went to open the door. On the doorstep stood a courier with a bouquet of flowers, her favorite. And how did Billy know? Smiling, Angelica thought, decided to redouble his efforts. She thanked the courier and went to put the bouquet in a vase. The bouquet revealed a note. I know you'll never forgive me. I only want to hope that at least these flowers can admire you. Archie, Angelica cried. She wanted to call Archie immediately and ask him to come back. All right, don't relax. You don't want to get trampled into the mud for one room. She went to make herself a cup of coffee, but the smile didn't leave her face all day. Archie also walked around all day happy Angelica did not return the bouquet to him and did not throw it away. He would have noticed it in the trash cans. For the next 2 weeks, the bouquets appeared at Angelica's house every morning. The doorbell rang. Strange, Angelica thought, it's too late for a bouquet. And it was already today. Maybe Archie dared. Making a disgruntled face, Angelica opened the door. The mailman stood outside the door. He handed Angelica a form for her to sign. What's this? A registered letter. Angelique signed her name. Court, she read on the envelope. What the hell is this? Opening the envelope, Angelica discovered that she had been summoned to court. The time for reconciliation on the divorce petition had expired. At the same time, Archie was also looking at the same summons. They had both completely forgotten that Angelica had filed for divorce. With her, you've had your chance, and more than one. Angelica cut her off. Archie looked at her in surprise. Yes, when you first started cheating on me. After the first girl, you could have wondered, why did she lie under you? A 40-year-old man with 2 kids. No, you immediately decided that it's all about your brutal, life experience, beauty, and great intelligence. Well, how else? Angelica was silent. Archie looked down at the floor. He had nothing to say. You didn't take that chance. Now let the court decide. But even if the judge gives a reprieve, don't think it will change my mind. That's when the doors opened. Stand up. Court is now in session. The judge, having looked around at those present, read out the decision. 3 months adjournment to reconcile the parties. Angelica walked out of the courtroom with a stone face. In her heart, she was glad for the reprieve and scolded herself for it, but she pretended to be dissatisfied with the decision. Archie caught up with her at the car. "Angelica, let's come to some kind of decision. I can't believe you just fall out of love with me like that. Tell me what I can do to make you at least let me talk to you. You already call me whenever you want." Angelica carefully pretended to be angry about this conversation. "I call on business, and I just want to talk to you, to find out how your day was. How are you doing? How are the kids?" "Okay, I'll think about it. I'll call tonight if you don't mind," Archie smiled hopefully. "Call." Angelica got into the car with a disgruntled face. Everything inside her was dancing with joy. She tried to scold herself again, but she failed. For the rest of the day, the woman was in high spirits. Lucy arrived in the evening, anxious to know how the trial had gone. Angelica told her everything in detail, describing how Archie had begged her to think about it and give him a chance. "You've got the hang of it, my friend." Lucy smiled. "What old love doesn't rust." Angelica smiled enigmatically. The doorbell rang. "Are you expecting someone?" Lucy was surprised. "No." Archie was only going to call. Intrigued, Angelica went to open the door. A courier stood on the doorstep. He handed the woman a large package and a bouquet of flowers. The package contained Angelica's favorite pizza and a bottle of wine. In the bouquet was a card. "I know you're sharing the experience with your friend right now, so I won't disturb you with my call. I love you." "How thoughtful," marveled Lucy, "and how well he knows you. He guessed that you would meet me today to share your impressions of the trial." Angelica fell asleep with a smile. She wasn't going to give in to Archie's pressure, but she was pleased with his excitement and desire to win her back. Archie lay down full of welcome hope, too. All day long he had been working out a plan to conquer his wife. Everything was scheduled literally by minutes, from flowers to the restaurant, from nice gifts to decisive actions. "Angelica, how are you? I missed you. Why don't we go out?" Billy was on the other end of the line. Angelica didn't know what to say. She liked his advances, but there was something missing. "You just don't love him," Lucy concluded when Angelica shared her doubts with her friend. "Why not?" Angelica agreed. "Let's do it." "Then I'll pick you up at 7. Will that be convenient?" "Convenient? I wonder why he does not give me flowers," wondered Angelica. Indeed, remembering all their dates, she suddenly discovered that he really never gave her flowers. "Okay, I'll try to find out today." At this time, the phone rang again. "Angelica, how about dinner tonight?" It was Archie. "I'm sorry, but you're a little late." Angelica replied calmly. "I've already promised this evening to someone else." "Who?" Archie didn't seem to believe her. "It doesn't matter." The husband was silent. Angelique didn't say a word either. Finally, she got tired of waiting. "Is there anything else you want to say?" "Angelica, have you got another man?" "It's none of your business, Archie." "But how could it be? We had a deal." "About what?" "That we try to start over." "I didn't give you a definite answer. I just said I'd think about it." "Okay, I get it. Have a good night." "Thank you." As she finished talking to Archie, Angelica suddenly didn't feel like going out to dinner with Billy. She dialed Lucy to share her doubts. "Don't even think about it." Her friend was angry. "Dress up and go." "How do you know if you want Archie or not? He's the only man you've ever been with. He may not be the only gold in the world." Okay, I get it," Angelica said conciliatingly, feeling her friend getting more and more agitated. After chatting a little longer, they said goodbye. Angelica was thinking again. The question that plagued her now was how to dress. To let Billy know that he could count on more than just dinner, or to make him realize that he was just a friend. "What, just friends? At my age?" Angelica scolded herself. "Lucy is right. We need to remember that there are other men out there." She chose a dress with open shoulders, stockings, and high stiletto shoes. To make the look less overtly inviting, Angelica threw a jacket over her shoulders. Billy arrived exactly at 7. He looked at Angelica admiringly and took a small box out of his pocket. Angelica was startled. A proposal. Wasn't it a little early? But the box contained a beautiful daisy brooch. "Thank you, but I can't accept this gift. It's too expensive." "Well, first of all, I can't give a gorgeous woman some cheap trinket, and secondly, I can afford it, and it doesn't bother me at all. For the first time would be quite enough, and a bouquet of flowers," as if casually said Angelica. Angelica, I fool. A long time ago did not court women and completely forgot that you need to give flowers. All the women I know are my business partners, and they can misunderstand flowers. Therefore, having missed all the first times when it is really supposed to give flowers, I decided to correct myself. And actually, to be honest, I don't remember how to woo women at all. They had already gone outside, got into a cab, and were on their way to the restaurant. The conversation kind of died down. What happened that you forgot how to court women? Angelica asked when they brought dessert. I'm afraid you won't like my reason. Angelica decided not to ask anything more so as not to spoil the evening. Billy was so charming and gallant that she decided to find out later. Billy walked Angelica to the apartment door. She thought he would hint at a cup of coffee, but he just put his arm around her and kissed her, gently and unobtrusively. I'm sorry I didn't ask your permission. I'm sure you wouldn't have allowed it. Thank you for a wonderful evening and see you later. Billy held Angelica's hand slightly in his, looked into her eyes, smiled a soft smile, and walked away. A stunned Angelica stood at the door to her apartment and looked where Billy had just stood. Waking up, she opened the doors and entered the apartment. The feeling of flying didn't leave her for the rest of the evening. Lucy was right. There are other men. Archie, who had been watching the scene at the door of his former apartment, leaned against the wall in despair. Having learned that his wife was on a date, he decided to spy on her and her admirer. To do so, he came to her entryway, climbed to the floor above, and waited. When the strange man kissed his wife, Archie wanted to jump out of his hiding place and throw himself at him with fists, but he realized in time that would only spoil everything. He leaned against the wall again. After a while, footsteps sounded as they traveled down the stairs. Angelica had not invited him. Then all was not lost. After waiting for her to close the apartment door behind her, Archie ran outside. He wanted to catch up with Angelica's beau and talk to him man to man, but he was nowhere to be found. Most likely the man had a cab waiting for him and he'd left. What can I say, friend? Lucy twirled her coffee cup in her hand. Intrigue. Your Billy is strange. He's not mine. Angelica objected, but Lucy, as if she hadn't heard her, went on. Usually, men in love give about themselves every day. Write love nonsense, call to find out how you are doing, and say some vanilla bullshit. They call for a date every day, not like this one once a week. And flowers. Where did he forget that a girl should get flowers? Yeah, it's bothering me too. Well, what about Archie? Does he know you've been seeing someone else? Yeah, he's been calling to see how it went. Well, what about you? I told him it was none of his business. Did Billy call you again? No. He's weird though. Archie was pacing around the office. Work wasn't going well. All he could think about was Angelica's boyfriend from last night. He wanted to do something, but he didn't know where to start. Archie, Colonel Stone is here to see you. The secretary's voice made Archie jump with surprise. Invite him in. Colonel Stone was an old army friend of Archie's. Only, unlike him, he hadn't gone into business, but into the police force. It was a good time to have him here. Hey, buddy. Archie threw his arms out to greet his friend. You just don't know your timing. Well, I'm actually on business. The colonel was confused. What business? Archie asked impatiently. I wanted to address you on old friendship. I have a nephew. Recently graduated from Polytechnic, but there's no decent job. He's already changed 2 places. What's wrong? They give to develop an object for testing, and then they fire him like he didn't pass the probation period. And the projects are in the case. Good job. Almost for nothing, they get a finished job. Archie shook his head. Well, what about you? You've got opportunities like this. I'd give it to you, but Evan, my nephew, is against it. He says he doesn't want to build a career on Blodotniks. Good for you. I respect you. A man. Let him bring his projects. I'll see where I can put him. Thank you. I suppose you wouldn't mind accepting a little present from me as a thank you. Stone took out an empty bottle of cognac. Archie grinned and set out the glasses. After taking a sip, the colonel turned to Archie. Well, what's your business? Archie sighed and with a nod of his head pointed to the bottle, signaling that more was needed. Half an hour later, the bottle was half empty and Stone knew all about it. Oh yeah, you're such an asshole. You think you'd cheat on your wife for self-gratification. I don't care if she was a bitch or if she was like the modern girls who only cared about money. She could have left you 6 years ago, when you had the surgery. She could have said she wanted more children and you couldn't fulfill her wish, but she didn't. She kept on being with you and loving you, and you. That's not manly. I should punch you in the ass. You don't give you help. I'm sensing this Billy guy's a little shady. Go through your channels and find out what kind of man he is. I'll do it. I'll find out where you're going, you fool. Oh, goody. Archie was glad. When the bottle was empty, the old friends decided not to stop there and went to the nearest bar to continue. Angelica was awakened by the doorbell. She looked at the clock and was surprised. It was the first hour. Who could it be? She slowly walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Archie was standing outside the door, and from the way he was leaning and swaying against it, he was pretty drunk. Why did you come here and drunk? Angelica was indignant. Angelica, forgive me. I'm out of habit. I'm sorry, but if you don't let me in, I'll just stay under the threshold. I'll never make it home. What kind of punishment is this? Angelica opened the door with a heavy sigh. Archie stepped in, kicked off his shoes and walked into the living room, holding onto the walls. I'll sleep it off and leave, he muttered, falling back on the sofa. Where did you get so drunk? Angelica brought him a pillow and a plate. Grisha came, asked for his nephew. Should have known. You only with him so drunk, but at least rarely. Although you could not drink at all, you can't get these soldiers drunk. He probably didn't come home that drunk. Angelica looked at the man judgmentally, but he was asleep, snoring sweetly. Archie woke up to complete silence and peace. He felt as good as he had ever felt in the last few months. He was afraid to open his eyes lest the feeling evaporate. After lying down a little longer, he realized that he would have to open his eyes, and on top of that, he would have to get up. His internal organs demanded some action. The man opened his eyes and smiled. He was in his apartment, in the apartment where his Angelica lived. He made his way to the bathroom, took a shower. After a little thought, he headed for the bedroom, where the remnants of his clothes that he hadn't picked up should have been. Angelica was sleeping peacefully and didn't hear anyone walking around her room. Putting on his robe and taking one of the suits he had left in this apartment, Archie went out into the living room. He hung the suit on the back of a chair and made his way to the kitchen to make breakfast for himself and, of course, Angelica. Angelica woke up to the delicious smells coming from the kitchen. At first, she was afraid that there was a stranger in the apartment, but who would have keys? And it was unlikely that a stranger would be cooking something delicious in the kitchen. Deciding that it was one of the children came for an unscheduled weekend, deciding to surprise her, Angelica threw on a robe, ran into the kitchen and, stunned, Archie was standing at the stove, cooking something, falsely humming to himself. Oh yes, he showed up drunk last night and asked to spend the night, remembered Angelica, and said aloud, I thought you were only asking to sleep over, not to manage the forge. Archie turned, smiling broadly, and said cheerfully, Good morning, my love. I thought I'd treat you to breakfast. Yes, while we were living together, you had no time for it. And now I have. He did not pay attention to her sarcastic tone, and still smiling, Archie answered, Come on, get in the shower and sit down to breakfast. Angelica, unable to think of anything better to do, obediently headed for the shower. They had a lovely breakfast. The conversation over the meal was exclusively on neutral topics. Having finished breakfast, Angelica stood up with a plate in her hands, intending to wash the dishes after breakfast. Archie decided to do the same. They bumped into each other halfway through. The plate fell out of her hands and she grabbed Archie's shoulder to steady herself. He caught her deftly and instinctively pulled her against him. Angelica knew she had to break free of his embrace, for her eyes were blurring and her breathing was quickening. She put both hands on Archie's shoulders, trying to push him away, but her weakened arms would not obey her. Archie felt her weak attempts to free herself, but he pulled her even tighter against him. Then he leaned in and kissed her confidently. His kiss put an end to Angelica's resistance, and she dissolved completely into her sensations. Their connection was like the collision of two charges, two universes, two people who had not seen each other for a long time but who loved each other. Their kisses were so greedy, so demanding, it seemed like they were together for the last time, or the long-awaited first. When the explosion ended, Angelica saw that she was lying on the dining room table with her legs wrapped around Archie leaning over her. She jumped up like a stunned woman, pushing the man away with force. Archie, how could you? Do what? He was surprised. Take advantage of my condition. What your condition? Archie was frightened. Did you get sick and I misunderstood? I'm sorry. Come on, I'll help you to the bedroom. What bedroom? What are you talking about? For you to lie down and I'll get you some water or medicine. What do you have? What are you taking? He picked Angelica up in his arms and carried her. His reaction amused Angelique. How frightened he was that instead of helping her, he made love to her. Archie, meanwhile, carried her to the bedroom and laid her in bed, carefully adjusting the blanket. What can I get you? Nothing. I mean, I'm human too, and sometimes I want sex. So I took advantage of you. How about you? Me what? It's Angelique's turn to be amazed. Maybe you took advantage of me. I didn't have anyone after we broke up either. Besides, you have always been desirable to me, so maybe you fell on me on purpose? Oh, you. Angelica couldn't find the words and grabbed a pillow and threw it at Archie. He dodged it and grabbed Angelica into his arms. She didn't fight back, but just froze, waiting to see what would happen next. Deep down, she wanted their morning tenderness to continue, but common sense called for the opposite. Archie didn't hear her silent pleas to stop. He could feel her breathing quicken as she collapsed in his arms. He couldn't resist her suppleness or his desire. Angelica couldn't sleep. Sleep wasn't coming. Instead, memories of this morning flashed through her mind, making her hot and cold. Butterflies fluttered in her stomach and her face flushed with color. Archie didn't let her go for a long time and intended to stay for good, but Angelica gathered her courage and said, I'm sorry, of course, but everything that happened will not affect my decision. I still want to part with you. Yes? I hadn't noticed, grinned Archie. Well, you've answered that question before. Yeah, I get it. So you're going to sleep with me until you decide it's okay to start sleeping with Billy. Get out. Angelica wanted to hit him for saying that. With that suggestion, he compared her to frivolous women. In all their 20 years together, she had never even thought of another man. Yes, she was seeing another man now, but only so she wouldn't have to think about his betrayal and put him out of her mind for a while. He thought she was a calculating girl who was satisfying her needs at her ex-husband's expense to avoid appearing easy to the next guy. Archie left without a word, and Angelica did not find a place for herself all day. When in the evening the courier brought her another bouquet of flowers from Archie, she simply sent it back. Having blacklisted Archie in her phone, she was determined that today they had put a beautiful, graceful end to their relationship. The hardest part remained getting her husband out of her head. When the courier returned the bouquet, Archie was angry. How touchy we are. And the fact that she didn't have time to kick me out of the house, but immediately found a replacement for me. Is that what she considers normal? And the fact that she used me is also normal. And now she's offended, you see. So be it. There's no future for us, only divorce. Angelica, how would you like to have dinner? Like tonight? Billy's voice sounded so tender and affectionate that Angelica immediately agreed. Billy had been courting her strangely. He didn't call every day, he didn't give her flowers, but he was always polite, caring, and looked at her with eyes full of admiration. On their last date, he gave her a brooch in the form of a daisy. Angelica thought it was very expensive, but when she showed it to her friend Ira, who was an expert in such things, it turned out that the daisy was insanely expensive. Underground millionaire? Thief in law? The illegitimate son of an Arab sheikh? Or simply stolen? Lucy gave out assumptions about Billy's financial condition one after another. Angelica remained perplexed and silent. It would be necessary to find out more about him or else. But how? Should she hire a private investigator? And if he notices? You could say you're afraid he's secretive and you don't want to date someone you don't know. In order not to provoke Billy to more decisive actions than just a kiss, Angelica chose a modest dress without cleavage. As a piece of jewelry, she attached the brooch she'd been given. An hour later, she was glad she made that decision. Instead of going to one of the city restaurants, the car drove out of town and went further along the highway. Trying not to show her anxiety, Angelica asked, "Where are we going?" "I'm sorry, but I thought it was time for us to get to know each other better. So we're going to my house." Seeing Angelica's frightened look, Billy added, "I realize that this is unexpected and scary for you, but I assure you, you don't have to be afraid of me. And my grandmother is quite harmless too." "Your grandmother?" "Yes, she raised me alone after my parents died. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know? Of course you didn't know. I don't like to talk about myself, not even to a girl I really like. So you're not gonna tell her, you're just gonna introduce her. Billy laughed and kissed Angelica's hand. Usually men only introduce their family if they have serious intentions for their girlfriend, Angelica said cautiously. You're right. Billy looked intently into her eyes. I don't want to rush you or force you to do anything. I just want you to know that my intentions for you are very serious. But you have the right to decide the outcome of our relationship. Billy, I'm a married woman. For now. And I have 2 grown children. I know. You told me everything the night we met. Believe me, I'll wait as long as it takes. They pulled up to a small country house. A little girl, about 8 years old, ran out to meet them. And before Angelica had time to be surprised and ask who it was, the girl screamed, "Daddy." Billy picked the girl up and whirled her around. "My princess." A short, elderly woman appeared at the door. "All right, get inside. It's cold." They entered the spacious hall. Billy took his daughter off her arms and helped Angelica undress. Then he introduced them. "This is my grandmother, Elizabeth. My daughter is Victoria." Nodded. "Angelica, it's a pleasure." Angelica introduced herself. "Let's go, Angelica, have dinner. Otherwise everything will get cold." "We've been waiting for you," said Grandma, and strolled into the back of the house. For the first time in a long time, Angelica felt so good, calm and free. She felt at home at Billy's. Elizabeth turned out to be a cheerful and kind woman. Victoria was a charming child. They immediately found a common language, and the evening passed in a warm and friendly, even family atmosphere. Billy, too, dropped all his officialism and behaved like a boy. Angelica felt as if she were back in her past, when she and Archie and the children had dined together, talking and fooling around. And then when they were tired, they'd hugged each other and sat by the fireplace and watched the fire. It made her sad. How could Archie leave all this for another woman? Was she really that good? Or was he just bored with his life and wanted something else? Something more colorful and varied than family dinners and conversations about everyday life? Thinking, Angelica didn't notice Elizabeth and Victoria saying goodbye and leaving. Millie's quiet voice made her flinch. "It wasn't your fault. What happened? What are you talking about? You think you're to blame for the divorce? You think you didn't give your husband enough, so he started looking for it in other women. Trust me, it's not true. If a man loves you and he will miss something, he will definitely tell you about it. Well, if he doesn't, it means he doesn't need it from you. It means he doesn't consider you in his desires. Trust me, as a man. Do you consider me in your desires?" Angelica looked Billy straight in the eye. He held her gaze and then, without saying a word or taking his gaze from her eyes, pulled her to him and kissed her. Gradually their kiss became more passionate and hotter. Angelica sighed softly and pressed herself even tighter against the man. "Just a little more and I won't be able to stop," Billy whispered against her lips. Reason and wild desire struggled inside Angelica. Finally, reason won out. Pulling away from him, she said in a slightly husky voice, "You're right. It's not time yet. Take me home, please." "Yeah, sure." Billy got up reluctantly and helped Angelica up. They were silent on the way home. Each was thinking about something else. Already at the apartment door, Angelica turned to Billy and said, "Give me time. I don't know what I want or who I want." There was desperation in her voice. Billy put his arms around her and kissed her lightly on the hair. "I understand. I'll wait. But you promise me you'll tell me right away what you've decided. You won't lead me on." "Yes, of course." Angelica raised her head to look at Billy. He regarded her look in his own way and kissed her. They stood kissing for a while longer until the sound of the door opening was heard from upstairs. Abruptly pulling away from Billy, Angelica giggled and waved playfully and disappeared through the doorway of her apartment. Billy walked out of her entryway with a smile on his lips. She would be with him. "Colonel Stone is here to see you. It's on the speakerphone." "Yes, send him in." Archie stood up to greet his friend. After shaking hands and sitting down on the sofa, the men waited for the secretary to bring them coffee. "Anyway, on your question," Stone began Billy, 40 years old, raised by his grandmother from the age of 5. Parents died in a plane crash. Married, wife died in childbirth. Left behind a daughter, Victoria, age 8, has his own construction business, quite successful. After the death of his wife, he went deep into work and brought his company to the international level. He has orders in the US, Europe, and Asia. Despite his impressive fortune, he lives modestly. A country house where his grandmother and daughter live, and an apartment where he sleeps when he is late at the office. 2 cars, an SUV and a sports car. That's his entire fleet. Where does he put his money? Archie wondered. He keeps it in bank accounts. Archie leaned back on the couch and thought. He had hoped that the colonel would find some dirt on Angelica's boyfriend. But from all accounts, he was a more worthy candidate for a husband than Archie himself. Something had to be done. Listen, Archie turned to stone. Since my rival is so impeccable, we must somehow artificially put a stain on his reputation. You don't want to play fair? The colonel raised an eyebrow. All's well in love and war, Archie said philosophically and looked at his friend meaningfully. Stone grinned. He put his cup on the coffee table and stood up. I'm sorry, friend, but it's not for me. You've been dishonest with your wife. Now you've decided to frame a stranger, just because he may have decided to make Angelica happy. And why are you doing this? To stroke your ego. To prove to yourself that you can have any woman you want, even the one you betrayed. And then what? You set this guy up. Angelica comes back to you, and then what? You're gonna go back to skirts. Archie, not expecting such an attack from his friend, was silent in amazement. No, Archie, I'll take it from here. But still listen to me as your friend. You have already acted as a scoundrel. Think about it, realize and make the right decision for further actions. Play fair, like a man. The morning began splendidly. No sooner had Angelica woken up than the doorbell rang. Tony and Leslie stood on the doorstep. With all the worry, Angelica had completely forgotten that the children were due to arrive today. She gladly took them into her arms. While the children undressed and washed up, Angelica prepared a quick snack. To be honest, I forgot you were coming, the woman excused herself in the kitchen. Come on, Mom, it's okay. Tony reassured her. You should have called to remind me. How are you doing? Oh, it's a long conversation. Smiling, Angelica waved her hand. You've got someone? Leslie stared. Do you mind? Angelica was about to get upset, but her daughter immediately calmed her down. Of course not. I was just afraid that you completely despair and go away from Daddy's betrayal. Thank God, you turned out to be stronger. Who is he? Let's whisper in the evening, suggested her daughter Angelica. Now I have with your arrival came so much to do. I haven't even bought any food. Mom, I'll have a snack and I'll go with you to the store. Tony was eating sandwiches prepared by Angelica. You don't have to. You better get some rest from the road. Angelica resisted. I slept the whole night resting on the train. I'm fully rested. Tony smiled and finished his coffee. When do we leave? I'll get dressed now and we can. Angelica headed to her room. While she was getting ready to go to the store, Billy called. You'll probably laugh at my platitude, but I'm calling just to hear your voice, he said softly. Why, I'd like to hear your voice too. Angelica froze waiting for him to continue, but Billy was silent as well. Finally, he spoke up. Will I be able to see you today? Not tonight. My kids are here. First thing in the morning. I'd like to introduce you, but you understand, I need to get them ready first, Angelica said in an apologetic voice. That's okay. Of course, the children want to spend their first evening at home with their mother, not a stranger. Next time then? Yes. Bye. Bye. Angelica suddenly felt sad. After last night, she looked at Billy with different eyes. He wasn't just a man who'd hit on a woman he liked. Billy was so kind and considerate and relational. He wasn't as assertive as Archie, but his gentleness and reverent care were endearing. Mom, are you ready? Tony was already waiting at the door. Mom, you can't forgive betrayal. Just if you forgive him, you will be on the same level with him and with all his girls with whom he cheated on you. Leslie said it in such a casual, calm tone that Angelica realized she was right. But Leslie, he's your father. Angelica tried to find an argument in Archie's favor. He's a father to us. He's a husband to you. The man you trusted and had children with and lived 20 years of your life with whom you've been, as they say, for better and for worse, in sickness and in health. And now when you have all passed, all achieved, and you only have to live in your own pleasure and wait for grandchildren, he preferred to spend this carefree period with other women. Nastin is right, Mom. Tony came into the living room and sat down on the sofa where Angelica and Leslie were sitting. After dinner, he volunteered to do the dishes and gave his mother and sister a chance to have some privacy. But still, he decided to express his opinion as well. For us, he is still a father, you can't change that, but you shouldn't live with a man who did that to you for our sake. You just don't deserve it. All right, I'm convinced. Angelica hugged the children at her side. Okay, now for the good stuff. Who is he? Leslie looked at her mother expectantly. I met him at a restaurant around Lucy, and I went for a night out. Angelica told us all about Billy, but withheld some intimate details. Are you going to introduce us to him? I don't know. You should. He sounds like a pretty nice guy, and we'll have a look at him from the outside. We'll evaluate him. Evaluate? Angelica laughed. You my evaluators. Well, what's so funny? You know, after all you've been through with your father, you may not perceive the situation correctly. We're gonna help you look at this Billy guy objectively. All right, when? What's the holdup? Just call me tomorrow. Angelica, my love, why didn't you tell me the kids were here? Archie's voice was lusciously sweet. Why should I tell you? Angelica answered him in the same tone. It was a surprise to me too. But you could have called me afterward and told me, couldn't you? I think that if Leslie or Tony had wanted you to know they were coming, they would have called you. Angelica, be honest. Are you turning them against me? You're turning them against you. All right, then I'll come tomorrow to rehabilitate myself in their eyes. I think you should make a deal with them first. I think it's best if I surprise them. Archie didn't let Angelica answer, disconnecting. Angelica twisted the receiver in her hands and tried to think of what to do. Archie had called just as she was about to dial Billy to invite him to dinner. She was delayed as she wondered whether to invite Billy alone or with Elizabeth and Victoria. It was at this point that Archie called. I think it would be best if I surprise you. Archie was sure that the children had understood and forgiven him long ago. Forgiving Angelica, however, was a matter of time. Angelica left the bedroom and walked to Leslie's room. The girl was still awake. Leslie, here's the thing, Angelica began. Dad called. He wants to surprise you and come over tomorrow night. Have you invited Billy yet? Leslie asked, frightened. No, I haven't. Well, then let's put Billy on hold and give Daddy another chance to prove himself. Okay, but I'm not cooking anything special. Of course you're not. It's a surprise. We're not expecting anyone, winked her daughter. Artem decided not to say anything. Let him take the appearance of his father as he sees fit and not imposed by the mood of his mother and sister. In the morning, the doorbell rang. I wonder if I'm going to have surprises every morning now. With a slight grunt, Angelica got out of bed and went to open the door. I hope they'll be pleasant. Leslie was already signing for a gorgeous, huge bouquet of roses. Leslie, you have an admirer. Angelica walked over to her daughter to take a deep breath of the fragrance emanating from the flowers. No, Leslie was enjoying the scent too. What kind is it? It's the first time I've ever smelled such an amazing scent from roses. Maybe the delivery guy made a mistake. Dad knows you don't like roses very much. I really don't have anyone to give them to. Okay, let's go put it in a vase. If this bouquet isn't for us, at least it'll leave an odor in the apartment. Angelica poured water and Leslie freed the bouquet from the wrapping paper. A small envelope fell out of the paper. In the envelope was a note. You said you didn't like roses, but these are roses from my grandmother's greenhouse. She assured me you love them. Grandma has a greenhouse? Leslie looked cheerfully at her mother. Honestly, I didn't even know. Anyway, don't send them back. The scent is amazing. Not like these salon ones. I wasn't going to. I'll go, thank you. Angelique remembered. The whole trio sat in the living room. Angelica was dozing. Leslie was reading a book. Tony was playing some kind of shooting game. The doorbell rang. Here we go, thought Angelica and went into the hallway. Hello, darling. Archie shoved a bouquet into her hands and kissed her. Angelica gently pulled away. He decided to ignore it for the moment and turned his attention to Leslie and Tony, who had also gone into the hallway. Then pulled back, looking at them perplexed. What's that look? Angelica and Leslie tried to look as homely as possible, both wearing pajamas and soft animal slippers. Tony, looking at his mother and sister, was also underdressed. Shorts, toy slippers, and an old t-shirt. Compared to them, Archie looked like a fashionista, expensive suit, styled hair, and exclusive perfume. What do you mean? Leslie made a surprised face. Why don't you like our look? Aren't you expecting me? Didn't your mom warn you? He shifted his gaze to Angelica. Well, you said it would be a surprise. I didn't say anything. Angelica looked mockingly at her husband. At least you could have prepared yourself. Archie was perplexed, but then he realized, I see. You all slowly prepared, and you will now change clothes, and we'll go to dinner. Of course. You always played along with me. All right. Come on. Go get ready. Angelica, come on, I'll help you set the table. He took her under his arm and led her into the kitchen. Angelica freed herself from his grip, stopped and said, Archie, I don't know what you're talking about. Where are you taking me? Where are you taking me? The kitchen. You've got a table to set. What table? What for? Angelica, we talked yesterday. I told you I wanted to surprise you and come. And you had to prepare everything. Set the table, dress nicely, prepare the children. Hey, so you decided to surprise me, and I'm the one preparing it. No, I'm sorry, Archie, but those days are over. I don't want to cook anything for you. You come to the kids, you take care of them yourself. I'll stay out of your way, but I'm not gonna cater to your schemes either. Angelica, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I'm trying. You're not trying. You put me in front of the fact and think I'll do the rest. And all you have to do is buy a broom, wine, and talk. Well, Angelica. Dad, I think we've seen each other. Tony tried to look serious, but his toy slippers spoiled the look. Angelica turned away to keep from laughing. Leslie came to her brother's rescue. Yes, Dad. Next time, warn me about your surprises. I'll at least boil some pasta. As a celebratory dinner. Archie stormed out of the apartment. Angelica smiled guiltily. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. After all, he is your father. Still, as a father, he behaves like a pig. It was midnight. The children were asleep, but Angelica couldn't sleep. She picked up the phone, then put it back on the bedside table. Finally, she made up her mind. Billy, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm awake. I had a feeling you were gonna call me tonight. Yes? And I didn't dare. Well, you should have. I'd have waited all night and looked bad in the morning. Are you afraid that the business partners will be scared of you? No, you. I decided to sneak you out in the morning so we could have breakfast together. Don't worry, you'll get plenty of sleep. And since I'm not having breakfast, but I want to have dinner with you, you'll have time to make yourself pretty. That's great. Where are we going? My place. My kids want to meet you. He's no wow, but he's quite a nice guy. Tony and Angelica were sitting on the couch eating sunflower seeds. Leslie had run off to meet her girlfriends. Yes, what's embarrassing? Angelica looked at her son with interest. You can see that he cares about you. But he, like a rugged northern man, is afraid to show his feelings so as not to look weak. Rugged? Northern? Ah ha ha! Angelica laughed. Why such a definition? Well, I just thought our dad was a big man, but Billy was bigger than him. He's like a Viking. I mean, he's a construction worker. He started his career in construction as a bricklayer. He's got bricks for a figure. Angelica kept laughing, and he's learned to hide his feelings. His eyes are the only thing that give him away. Son, I didn't realize you were such a romantic. It's not romantic. If he keeps being so reserved, he'll lose to his father. Daddy knows how to make a woman feel good about herself. Speaking of Dad, Tony, don't you think you and Leslie are being a little hard on him? He didn't betray you. And he's always been a wonderful father. Maybe you shouldn't be so hard on him. Mom, of course you should. He ruined our family, everything we had. He traded you for his own selfishness, and he made you feel like you weren't important to him, which means he doesn't care about family. I mean, a family is all about the woman. No, we'll still talk to him, of course, and he'll always be a father to us, but he'll also be the man who ruined our family. So I shouldn't go back to him. Mom, it's your own business, but if I ever cheat on my girlfriend, I don't want her to forgive me, because forgiving her is disrespecting herself, and I don't want no self-respecting woman. Oh, how principled we are. Angelica patted her son's hair. Mom, that's not being principled. It's self-respect. My woman should be such that I strive to do everything possible and impossible for her. Then we will both be full-fledged individuals who can achieve in life everything they want. I get it. Billy? I think so, but take your time. All right, my general. All the next week, Angelica worked. She had a lot of orders before New Year's Eve and needed to get them all done before the holidays. She didn't want to take money from Archie, even though she knew that he usually put it on her card. The kids were getting ready for the session. Billy, realizing she was very busy, didn't insist on dating. He called every evening. They talked for a long time and goodbye. Mom, what are we doing for New Year's Eve? What is it, dear? I'd like to invite my girlfriend. You have a girlfriend? Yes, why? What's wrong? Tony frowned. No, of course not. You didn't say anything. You just don't have time for it right now. Tony, you're my kid. I always care about you. Come on. Tell me, who is she? We study together. I'd like her to spend New Year's Eve with us. Of course. Invite her. I'll prepare a room for her. When is she coming? Really? Thanks, Mom. I'll call her and make arrangements. Angelica, hi. How are you? Billy's voice was soft and quiet. I'm fine. Thank you. What are you doing for the holidays? Tony invited his girlfriend from DC over. Why don't we do New Year's Eve together? I don't know. Kids. It's just it's more New Year's Eve in our village, if you can call it that. Victoria and I made a slide and a snowman. We dressed up the Christmas tree in the yard. Maybe you're all coming to visit us. Angelica was stunned. All what? Of course. I think the kids will love it. Don't worry, we have plenty of room. Oh, that would be great. I'll talk to the kids, and I'll call you back. Great. Good night. Kisses to you and me. Angelica, how's the mood? Archie's voice sounded happy and as if nothing had happened. I'm great. Is that why you're calling? Of course not. It's New Year's Eve. Why don't we do it the old-fashioned way and celebrate it together? No, we're already invited. To your new boyfriend's house? That's none of your business. Angelica wanted to disconnect, but Archie hastily added, It's still my business. We are with you, if you remember, not yet divorced. I don't remember that gives a husband the right to decide for his wife. I'm not your property. Speaking of property, now that you've thought this through, we'll split the property? That's up to the court. Don't forget we have children. They're of age. I don't get it. You want to take the whole apartment to live there with your lover. Unlike your girlfriends, my lover, as you put it, in the living space does not need. I don't want to discuss these issues over the phone. See you in court. Angelica hung up. How quickly Archie's mood changed when something turned out not as he had planned. Why hadn't she noticed it before? And then Angelica remembered. That's right. Divorce in 2 days, and she did not even hire a lawyer. After thinking for a while, she decided, whatever happens, I'll do without a lawyer. Indeed, the children are big enough to deal with it themselves, and I will not be lost. If anything, I'll rent myself a small apartment. I'll have enough. I don't think my father will try to deprive us of anything. Tony looked at his sister thoughtfully. Yeah, he'll probably only try to hurt you, Mom. But that wouldn't be fair at all. Let's not talk about it. Angelica decided not to discuss the subject of divorce. Her problems with her husband, after all, should not touch their children. When's your girlfriend coming? On the 30th. Then we have to get ready. We don't even have the house decorated, and we have to get a Christmas tree. What if my dad sues the apartment? Well, you'll still be here. Stop moping. Tony, you go get the tree and the toys. Leslie and I will get the place ready and figure out where to put the ornaments. And tomorrow we'll all go trick-or-treating together. Angelica sat in the cafe across the street from the courthouse. Tears tried hard to come out of her eyes, but she held them back with all her remaining strength. Archie's lawyer had worked out his fee perfectly. She was intelligently and smilingly evicted from the apartment in which she had spent all these years, making it comfortable with such love and trepidation. She had not entertained bright hopes that Archie would leave her the apartment, but she didn't expect that he would evict her so easily. Angelica went to court confident that the absence of a lawyer will not affect the decision of the judge. After all, the apartment was bought in marriage. Angelica also had a job doing custom projects. But Archie made it so that all her orders passed through his firm, and officially she was considered unemployed, which he took advantage of in court. All the property they had acquired together over the years, except for personal belongings, remained with Archie. At least he didn't spoil the children. Naturally, my children will continue to live in the same conditions as before. I'll do everything I can to make sure that our divorce from Angelica doesn't affect them financially. Well, that, in principle, and cannot be. I've been providing for my family all these years. Now I have one less person, unfortunately. Well, what can you do? After Archie's speech, everyone in the room looked at Angelica judgmentally. You bet. A disgruntled, flighty, and most importantly, never once in her life not working woman, with her own hands ruins the family and still hopes for something. No wonder the husband of such a woman went to the left. Yes, it turns out she didn't know who she was living with all these years. All right, don't get too excited. We must urgently look for a place to live and move our things. Then she'd have to do something about her job. Even if all their clients pass through Archie's firm, but nothing will prevent them from going directly to Angelica. She will register her own business and call all her clients. Encouraged by her plan, Angelica was about to call the waiter to ask for the bill when Archie and his lawyer came to her table. You didn't wait for the ruling. The main thing is that I heard it, and I can get the paper itself by mail. Angelica had calmed down before he arrived, so she looked unperturbed, which made Archie very uncomfortable. He had hoped to catch her confused, crying and ready to give up. And the receiving address, I take it, you gave your lover. Unlike Angelica, Archie couldn't contain his feelings. I'm not going to talk to you like that, and in fact, do not have to report to a stranger. Good day to you. Angelica nodded to the lawyer, and throwing the bill on the table, left the cafe. She arrived home. The children looked at her expectantly. I was given 3 days to vacate the premises, Angelica said calmly, taking off her boots. I'm going to kill him. Tony rushed to get dressed. You better find me a decent apartment and help me move. Mom, I'm not staying with him either. Leslie helped her mother take off her coat. You don't have to. After the holidays, you'll go to school, and on the weekends, you can come to my place. And now, Tony, go find me a place to live. And you, Leslie, help me pack my things. I don't want to be here a minute longer. They were already packed, but Tony hadn't found anything suitable. Before New Year's Eve, there were only daily rentals. I'll stay in a hotel, Angelica decided. But Mom, it's expensive. It's okay. I have some savings. Oh, yes. Angelica took out her purse and put out the card to which Archie had transferred her money. Next to it, she put the keys to the apartment. At the same time, the phone rang. Hi, how did it go? Angelica didn't remember telling Billy the court date. She looked at the children in surprise. Mom, I'm sorry. I was the one who told Billy. I wanted him to support you. Leslie said guiltily. Did you decide that your support would not be enough for me? Angelica whispered to her daughter and then said into the phone, It's fine. Here packed. Now I'll go to the hotel. Why? With rented accommodation is now tense, and I need somewhere to live. Okay. The hotel is canceled. I'm coming to pick you up and take you to your new place. I've got one in mind. Angelica didn't have time to answer before Billy was gone. The children looked at her in silence. He said he found me an apartment and would be right over, Angelica said, puzzled. Great, rubbing his hands together, Tony said. But I'll go with you to make sure that everything is in order, and I'll get your address. Angelica smiled, but her thoughts were troubled. What is this apartment? Where is it located? And most importantly, what would Billy want for it? Billy's car was already parked in the driveway. He had helped load things into the trunk and had already opened the door for Angelica. Just as I suspected, you're going to your lover. Archie stood leaning against his car with his coat unbuttoned. From the way he was swaying, he was pretty drunk. Angelica, don't mind him. Get in, please. Billy took the woman's hand. Don't touch my wife, Archie shouted, and pulling away from the car, rushed toward them. She's not your wife anymore. Billy still managed to gently get Angelica into the car and turned to Archie, who was hurrying toward him. She'll always be my wife. She's my woman, and she'll be with me. Archie lunged at Billy with his fists, but he easily dodged, twisted the drunken man and threw him to the snow. You're too late, Billy told him calmly and opened the driver's side door. Tony, you wanted to come with us? Get in. No, Billy. There's been a change of plans. I have to stay behind so that this one, he nodded at his father, doesn't do anything wrong. All right, call your mother when things calm down. It wasn't a long drive. The apartment was a couple blocks from Elena's. Now X, a big new modern building, a barrier with guards at the entrance, a prim concierge, and a huge duplex apartment. Angelica turned to Billy. But I'm afraid I can't afford the rent. You don't have to pay for it. It's mine. I don't live there much. I try to stay with my grandmother and my daughter. We only sleep here once in a while when we're in town on business. Would you mind? I'm kind of uncomfortable. I feel like, make yourself at home. You can use this apartment as you see fit, rearrange the furniture, or add whatever you want. Thank you. I have no words. You don't have to. Thank you is enough. Billy stood there for a moment, as if trying to say something, but he changed his mind. Well, make yourself comfortable. See you later. Call me if you need anything. Billy went out, and Angelica remained standing by the suitcases. Then, as if waking up, she dialed her son's number. Tony assured her that everything was fine. He helped his father up to the apartment, and Leslie put him to bed. After asking his mother about her new place in Billy, he was pleased. See how great everything turned out. Billy's a great guy, but it's past midnight. And it's winter and the road's slippery, and he's got a long way to go. What are you implying? Mom, nothing. Good night. Angelica was thinking. She really should have asked Billy to stay. He's a decent man and wouldn't allow himself anything like that. It was too late to call. He had probably already left town. Angelica took off her coat, pulled off her boots, and at that moment the doorbell rang. The surprised woman went to the front door and looked at the intercom screen. Standing outside the door was Billy. What's wrong? Angelica asked anxiously, hurriedly opening the door. I suddenly remembered that I have, or rather, you already have, nothing to eat. Billy said embarrassedly, I bought something here. Billy went into the kitchen and put 2 large bags on the table. Unload them. I'm sorry, but this is your apartment now, so it's up to you. How are you? Leslie asked. I'm fine. The apartment is beautiful. I haven't looked at everything yet, but I'm going to do that now. You want to come over? Oh, come on. I don't have anything to do yet anyway. Angelica rushed to clean up last night's mess. Are you still on board for New Year's Eve? They were sitting in a cozy little restaurant. Billy was holding her hand. Yes, I'd just like to help set it up. Then you'll have to come early. No problem. I'll tell the kids. How are they? They're fine. A little disappointed in their father, but I think they'll be fine. After dinner, Billy drove her home. Are you staying? I wish I could, but Victoria will be upset. She was up half the night last night waiting, and I didn't even call, and I lost my head over you. Well, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. After a little silence, Billy took Angelica's hands and looked into her eyes. Tell me, are you considering a relationship between us? I thought we already had one. I mean more serious, with plans for the future. Billy, I'm not gonna hide it. I'm very happy with you. But I hardly know you. I'm afraid. I've been with a man for 20 years, and it turns out I didn't know him at all. Let's take our time. Come on. I said I'll wait for you as long as it takes. Thank you. Angelica wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him to her. Billy responded eagerly to her kiss. He couldn't stop. You're just making me crazy, he whispered an hour later. Pack? Where? Why? We're going to my place. But I don't want to leave you alone after what just happened, and I can't stay. So you're coming with me. And no arguments. Angelica sighed heavily and agreed. She didn't want to leave Billy either. Angelica, I've sketched out a rough menu for New Year's Eve. See if there's anything you'd like to change. Elizabeth sat down with Angelica as she drank her coffee in the morning. Angelica was embarrassed. Oh, no, Elizabeth. I think the menu is perfect. Look at it anyway. Angelique began to read the menu. Elizabeth, you've realized all my fantasies in this menu, but is it too much? Billy said we'll have a big group, so it's just right. I wish there was something I could do to help. Don't worry, darling. There's still all that shopping and cooking to be done. I hope you'll help me tomorrow. Sure. Now Billy will take me home and I'll start preparing for tomorrow so that I can be in your charge tomorrow morning. Angelica smiled. Bah, pour me some coffee, please. A fully dressed Billy appeared in the kitchen doorway. The old woman fussed around her grandson. While she poured the coffee, Billy turned to Angelica. Why did you wake me up? You were sleeping so sweetly. I was sorry to wake you up, but now I don't have time to have breakfast with you. In the new year we'll have breakfast." Angelica smiled softly. A few minutes later, they were on their way to the city. Back home, Angelica called her daughter. She answered that everything was fine. She was studying for her exams. After discussing the upcoming holidays and Elizabeth's menu with Leslie, they agreed that Leslie would come to her mother's house. They spent the whole day shopping for groceries and outfits, and in the evening, tired and hungry, they decided to have dinner in a cafe. "How was your father?" Angelica asked. "He moved in with us. He's behaving as usual. He hopes that we will celebrate the new year together." "What? You didn't tell him?" "I told him, but he thought you told us to tell him that so he'd chase after you. He doesn't believe Billy needs you with 2 kids. He doesn't believe he needs you at all. He says he'll play with you and throw you away like you're nothing. Dad's convinced that guys like Billy prefer younger, more trouble-free women. Leslie, you're not gonna believe this, but that's what I think, even though Billy proves me wrong. He does. Yeah, he doesn't say much about our relationship, but he's showing me that he needs me in every way he can. I'm sure he's serious about you too. The way he looks at you." "You think so?" "Mom, don't you see anything?" "Yeah, when you're looking at him the same way." Billy called. "Dim, I'm so glad you called. Are you at work?" "No, I got off early today. I got a big meeting tomorrow. I'd like to get ready at home. You can come over to Angelica's cafe where she and Leslie were sitting." After kissing Angelica, Billy greeted Leslie. "I'll have a quick coffee with you, and then I'll be on my way." He looked at Angelica. "I hope you're coming with me." "No, I think if I go with you, you won't be prepared for the meeting." Angelica lowered her eyes and blushed. "That's true, but I'll be happy when I get there. That's the first time I've ever heard that it's enough to come to a meeting happy." Leslie laughed. "Leslie, sometimes it really is enough." Billy smiled at her. "All right, ladies, I'm gonna go. I'm afraid a little more of your company, and that's it. Goodbye to tomorrow's meeting. Bring the groceries, please." Angelica remembered, "so that we don't have to go tomorrow. We still have outfits and a change of clothes. Do you want me to send a car for you? I'll probably be late tomorrow. I'll call you later." Billy got up, kissed Angelica, smiled at Leslie, and left the cafe with the bags. "I told you, he's crazy about you," Leslie said with satisfaction. "What's so obvious?" Angelica blushed again. "Why noticeable?" "Visible to the naked eye." They laughed. "Maybe you'll stay at my place tonight? Sit, gossip?" Angelica looked hopefully at her daughter. "Let's do it, only we have to warn Tony." They called Artem, who wanted to join them. Once they had agreed, they headed home. In the big kitchen, it was fun. Leslie, Victoria, Elizabeth, and Angelica were getting ready for New Year's Eve. They had a lot of things to do: marinate meat, prepare vegetables for salads, make morsels, bake cakes for desserts. Angelica and Leslie arrived at lunchtime. After settling in, changing clothes, and eating a quick lunch, they immediately got into the cooking. Tony stayed in town. His girlfriend was arriving in the evening, and he was to meet her and go out of town with her. Billy had gone to work in the morning. It was the end of the year, and he wanted to finish everything so he could spend at least a few New Year's days at home with his family. They weren't expecting him early, so there was no rush with dinner. Tony arrived in the evening. With him was a short, skinny girl, greatly embarrassed, and spoke quietly. Elizabeth immediately took her under her wing. She took her to Vika's room, helped her unpack, and after waiting for her to change, led her into the living room where they were all waiting. The girl no longer looked so embarrassed. Elizabeth clapped her hands. "Why are we sitting here? Come on, let's set the table. A man from the road, she needs to be fed." Everyone clapped and rushed to the kitchen. Half an hour later, everyone sat at the table and had dinner. Svetlana told about herself and her family. Tony looked at her in love. Leslie, Victoria, and Angelica looked at the couple with amusement and winked slyly. Elizabeth was the only one fussing, trying to give everyone a refill. They did not notice that the time had passed midnight. A surprised Billy came into the dining room. "I thought you'd be asleep by now. I saw the lights on in the dining room, and I was glad, hoping they were waiting. And nobody even came out to greet me. I'll be right there." Angelica came out. "Come on, I'll help you undress." She ran up to Billy and took him into his room. "Sorry, Tony's girlfriend is here. She's such a wonderful girl. Sweet. modest. Your grandmother got her settled in real quick. She has a gift. First she helped me, now she's helping Smita. While Angelica was talking, Billy had time to change into his clothes and wash up. He came up to her and, cutting her off at half a word, kissed her. I've been dreaming about this all day. Had you had a hard day? Not very, but exhausting. But I'll try to be back by lunchtime tomorrow. That's great. I was worried we'd only see you when the chimes strike. And only for 5 minutes, until you fall asleep from exhaustion. No way. I still have to congratulate everyone. So not 5, but 15. Billy laughed when he saw Angelica's saddened face. I'm just kidding. I promise I'll be by your side all through the new year. He put his arm around her, and they walked into the dining room hugging each other. When they finished dinner, everyone went their separate ways. Tony and Stellana went to the living room. Leslie and Victoria went to their rooms. Angelica persuaded Elizabeth to go to bed, promising that she would wash and clean the kitchen herself. As she washed the dishes, Billy sat at the table with a cup of tea and watched her. You won't get much sleep tomorrow, Angelica hinted softly. Then let me help you, because I won't go to bed without you. You what? Angelique's eyes widened in surprise. What about the children? And your grandmother? What will they think of me? Okay, well, last time everyone was asleep, and hopefully they thought I slept in the guest room. Billy got up from his seat, walked over to Angelica, grabbed a towel, and began wiping down the dishes she had washed. Then, while she put away the clean plates, he wiped off the table. All this he did in complete silence. When the kitchen looked clean and tidy, he walked over to Angelica, put his arms around her and picked her up in his arms, kissed her soundly and carried her. She tried to pull away, but he whispered softly with only his lips still on hers. Do you want everyone to wake up? Angelica had no choice but to obey him. Hey, little brother, what are your plans for the new year? Archie was drunk, and you could hear it on Stone's phone. Why don't we celebrate together? I'm sorry, Archie, but I'm spending New Year's Eve in Spain with my family. No problem. I'm in. When are you leaving? We're already in Spain. Then I'll get on the next available flight and come to you. I'm afraid you won't make it. There are no tickets. We've bought our vacation tickets in advance, months in advance. Well, you can put the pressure on, can't you? You can get a trip for your best friend, can't you? I'm sorry, Archie, but this New Year's Eve my wife and I have decided to celebrate with our family. Annoyed, Archie hung up the phone. He tried calling several places, but all the tickets were sold out long before New Year's Eve. Then he took a bottle of whiskey and sat by the window. There were no thoughts. Suddenly his gaze fell on a clock from a photo that Angelica and her then young daughter had made with their own hands. On the photo was a family happy and still complete. A mother, a father, a little daughter, and a little less, a son. Archie dropped his head in his arms and sobbed. They stood in the courtyard with glasses of champagne, Bengal lights, and a friendly countdown. 12. Angelica looked at Billy, and he, sensing her gaze, came over to her and hugged her. 11, 10, 9. She looked at Leslie, who was standing with Victoria. Those in turn looked at her and waved cheerfully. 8, 7, 6. Tony was standing there kissing Selena, not paying attention to anyone else. Suddenly he pulled away from his lover and looked at his mother and smiled encouragingly at her. 5, 4, 3. I love you, Billy whispered to her, and I want you to be my wife. Angelica raised her head to him and looked anxiously into his eyes. His warm, tender, and loving gaze told her that he meant what he said and was just as worried as she was. 2, 1. Yay, I agree, whispered Angelica, and immediately her mouth was covered in a kiss. They stood and kissed without noticing anyone around them. And their big family joyfully shouted Happy New Year, hugged and kissed each other, drank champagne, and rejoiced at the new coming year.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.